Well, let's go to Helen Cook, Principal of GNE Advisory, responsible for advising and negotiating commercial agreements for new nuclear plants. Helen, I think we could safely call you a nuclear expert, couldn't we? But apparently nuclear experts who support the option in Australia don't exist.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Good to be with you. Well, clearly they do exist. There's lots of experts in Australia who believe that we need to move ahead with nuclear energy and have thought through how we would go about that. I'll also say that I've worked in the international nuclear sector now for 17 years, and I've got the question over and over again, what on earth is Australia doing with prohibitions, and why aren't we considering and actively implementing a nuclear energy program?
Yeah, it is bizarre. We're supposed to be a smart nation, a clever nation, a 21st century nation, and we want to, we want to excuse ourselves from this leading global technology where other countries are either getting on board or expanding their involvement. Now, you've given evidence today at this parliamentary inquiry into the industry. I see some observers say your evidence smashed it out of the park. Tell us what you told the inquiry.
So yes, I've come straight from the inquiry, and I sought to make two kind of major points. And the first one was to paint the picture of what's happening globally in the nuclear sector. I, in doing so, tried to say that Australia is becoming increasingly out of step with other industrialised countries and also countries in our own region that have active nuclear energy programs. And then the second thing that I sought to do was to address the comments of Claire Savage, the chair of the Australian Energy Regulator, who has said that it would take 8 to 10 years just to get the nuclear regulatory framework in place, and only then could you start building nuclear reactors in the country. And I fundamentally disagree with that timeline.
Yeah, you've talked to us about that before. That's your specialty, that regulatory framework. And as you've pointed out, we've already got the key elements of a regulatory framework in place here because we have a scientific and medical research reactor, have had for 70 years. We've also got a uranium mining and export industry. And I'm sitting here in Adelaide tonight in South Australia, where we have up in the north there at Olympic Dam, one of the largest uranium mines in the world, and where they also plan to build nuclear-powered submarines. So how could it not be possible in a state like this to also have a domestic nuclear power industry and the framework to control it and regulate it?
Look, it's absolutely possible. We're doing it for AUKUS. As I have said, as you say on your program before, we already have an existing legal and regulatory infrastructure here for the nuclear activities that we already undertake today. We've been a nuclear nation since the 1950s. To me, when I look at the framework we have, it's a matter of enhancing that framework and doing the human resource development to implement it. That can all be done. Country after country around the world is doing it, and we can do it expeditiously. It's actually one of the advantages that we have, is our starting point when it comes to the legal and regulatory infrastructure.
Well, this is one of the key points, as you mentioned, the human resources. Now, we've got nuclear experts who've worked here. We've spoken often to Adi Patterson, who used to head up Australia's nuclear organisation, where he came in from South Africa. Others have had experience in the UK and elsewhere. So we've brought in expertise. We've got other people who are educated here and have extended their educations overseas and the like. So we have a good pool of expertise here, and we would obviously supplement it by bringing people in or sending others from Australia overseas for further experience and study. I mean, surely these issues also are very, very surmountable.
They're entirely manageable. We not only, as you say, have an excellent existing body of human resources, but there's actually a fair few people working in this sector overseas. So you do hear Aussie accents around the world working at nuclear power plants, working on construction projects. So they exist, and I think they'd be quite happy to come home and support a nuclear program in Australia. But we also would need, as we're doing for AUKUS, to train a workforce for the future and for the future sustainability of our program. And you would do that through collaboration with partner countries, through sending people onto comments to work at nuclear power plants around the world, through cooperation with the nuclear regulatory bodies that have the experience in this area. And of course we would need to hire some international technical support organisations in the early phases to actually help us build our own human resource capability. all possible, all achievable, and I think we can do it expeditiously in Australia.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that that's impossible when that's exactly what our defence forces are doing already. The Navy have got people, of course, on exchange overseas to start to get this expertise in the nuclear-powered submarine field. On the news to come, we're waiting to see the Coalition outline their costings. You've got good experience of working on projects around the world. Are the costings likely to blow this thing out of the water, or are they going to be comparable to this renewables plus storage and transmission mix?
Look, I think we wait to see what they are, but what I'm really happy about finally is that we're going to see an apples to apples comparison. So I think we're going to see now, or we have seen now, a costing of what the Labor plan looks like, and now we're finally going to see what the Coalition plan looks like, and that will enable the Australian people to actually see what each of these different plans will cost on an apples to apples basis. And we really haven't seen that before. And of course, the gen cost only helps us with about 35% of what we pay at home in our electricity bill. It doesn't give us insight into the total system cost. And that's what I hope we're going to see soon.
Exactly, the total system cost, the cost we get in our bills at the end of the day, that's what matters. Thanks so much for joining us, Helen. I appreciate your expertise.